Welcome. Today's post is, Joe Biden, Donkey, equals Joe Burrow, Donkey and Tiger King, equals Joe Exotic, Tiger King. Published on September 22, 2023. Joe Biden is a donkey, the symbol for Democrat in the U.S., at the top of politics. Burro is Spanish for donkey, and Joe Burrow, or Joe Donkey, is another person at the top of his field right now. But Joe Burrow is also a calm for Joe Exotic of Tiger King infamy. A former rising star that's now in prison. Here are the topics we'll be decoding today. You can always find this list in the description below. If you enjoy this video, please press the like button, and subscribe for weekly full-length blog posts, and shorter, more shareable videos. Let's begin. Joe Burrow is the biggest name in sports right now. What might he be coordinating as a calm? Record-breaking news is always worth a dig. September 7, 2023. Bengals make Joe Burrow the highest-paid player in NFL history. 5-year with $55 million yearly. 5:5 is a calm for clear communications. A calm that wasn't just verified by Q, it's established military code. Why invoke 5:5 with Joe Burrow? Joe B. Iden, Donkey, equals top political figure. Joe B. Burrow equals Donkey and Tiger King is his nickname, equals top sports star. Joe Exotic, Tiger King, equals top rising star during coronavirus in prison. Comms are sent across the entire spectrum of media, and so what we see as the top news in one avenue is often coordinated in another. Finding patterns between them helps us piece together these different yet connected movies. What is Joe Burrow famous for? Joe Burrow was 200-1 odds on winning the Heisman Trophy and yet won it by the greatest landslide of all time. Joe Burrow was the first LSU winner of the Heisman Trophy since Billy Cannon, who died 2 days after news of Joe Burrow's move to LSU. Which is to say these two are strongly connected as comms across a long period of time. Billy Cannon. The two are talked about in numerous articles, and this is why decoding Joe Burrow requires we first decode Billy Cannon and the meaning of LSU in relation to both. So, what is Billy Cannon famous for? He won his Heisman on Halloween and received it from Richard Nixon. October 31, 1959. Billy Cannon receives the Heisman Trophy from VP Richard Nixon. October 28, 1959. JFK begins planning presidential run. JFK beat Nixon, who gave Billy Cannon his trophy. Why does that matter? The most famous moment of Billy Cannon? December 10, 1961. Houston Oilers utility back Billy Cannon gains AFL record 373 yards combined rushing/receiving. December 11, 1961. Vietnam War begins for the U.S. 400 landed in Saigon to take South Vietnam in jungle new guerrilla war. Define Cannon. This tells us everything we need to know about Billy Cannon comms. The goal was Vietnam, but they needed it to be Dems to pull the trigger. An intentional loss in the election. This explains that you're infamously having a stolen election. Nixon being the one to award the Heisman is especially telling. The LSU connection with Billy Cannon is also important. LSU is Louisiana State University. Louisiana is a calm for lose. I've gone over this in several posts. Notice the history of LSU before Billy Cannon. Right after the Union won, they donated Confederate cannons to LSU. As I decoded in this thread, Johnson was given the POTUS chair as a way to mend the country. The same is true with the switching in 1960. This explains why JFK's VP was named Johnson, just the same as Andrew Johnson. This does not mean the assassination was a movie, as the comms imply the parallels were for switching from Republican to Democrat, not Dem to Dem. It explains the parallels anyway. What does it mean for a calm fourth lose to win? June 1, 1874. Louisiana State University opens. June 1, 1874. Fall of the East India Company. The end of an empire. October 30, 1959. War Admiral Horst dead. 25 won U.S. Triple Crown in 1937. October 31, 1959. First American ICBM to carry a nuclear warhead. October 31, 1959. Billy Cannon famous Halloween run. November 30, 1959. NFL Draft. Billy Cannon drafted number 1 NFL. Intercontinental across world like going to Vietnam. That death of War Admiral connection is also important to reconcile. I go into it in this post. Famous loss same week as 2 different pushes tied to prepping US for war. Loss of war is symbolism of why push was necessary. October 30, 1938. War of the World radio broadcast of an alien attack on CBS radio leads to mass panic. November 1, 1938. Seabiscuit, famous Red has legendary win against War Admiral. November 6, 1938. Red Rider, fighting cowboy, debut craze leads to children buying guns to defend their families. Thus Billy Cannon comms involve push of going to war when Cannon wins. December 1, 1959. Heisman Trophy Award announced for Billy Cannon. December 1, 1959. Antarctic Treaty System, end of countries going alone. December 17, 1959. Bruno Sammartino debut. The opposite when he loses. During the Iran-Contra years, note Billy Cannon was arrested for counterfeiting. Symbol of using war for money printing. I noticed something curious with this. August 19, 1983. Billy Cannon sentenced to 5 years. August 19, 1983. Ratification India-Antarctica Treaty. August 20, 1983. Heat record Georgia 44.4 degrees Celsius. September 12, 1983. India-Antarctica Treaty. September 12, 1983. Billy Cannon begins 5-year sentence for counterfeiting $6 million. Bush won the Heisman in 2009. I'm not sure what to make of that last one. I just noticed Cannon dates lined up perfectly to Antarctica Treaty dates for India. Bush won the Heisman in 2005 but forfeited in 2010. But let's get back to Joe Burrow. Remember, Joe Burrow is the successor to Billy Cannon. He just got a record $55 million a year for 5 years. King of the NFL jungle. 5:5 comms, but given all these comms tied to presidents losing. Is there a president Joe B. invokes? Burro equals donkey. The obvious answer is Joe Biden. Burro equals donkey equals Democrat. Joe B. the donkey. Can't get any cleaner than that as a comm. What is being communicated clearly? Burrow also means digging. Getting dirt. I once had an extensive decode about Hillary the donkey. Comms in the media detailing HRC situation. October 2017. Hillary the donkey leg injury. October 2017. Q posits HRC detained. December 2017. Hillary reported as still wearing a medical brace, can't move. Plus 2 years. August 2019. Hillary the donkey still stranded after 2 years. Biden is a president I already decoded several times over as intentionally throwing the next race. Included with hurricane comms. Which is particularly meaningful this month, because you know what the newest hurricane is called. It's not Joe Burrow, it's Joe Lee Burrow. And we just so happen to have a Hurricane Lee this week approaching the Caribbean. You know where Biden has part of a Virgin Island. Though actually it's not even that. Because Joe changed his name into Burrows at LSU. Notice the X. How many names have X's in it? It's not easy to do. Which means that X is likely a comm. Reminds me of Twitter to X allowing 5:5. Burrows is also what they called a giraffe in Louisiana. September 9, 2021. Joe Burrow giraffe at Louisiana Zoo dies after sudden illness. September 9, 2021. Biden sweeping new vaccine mandates for companies, 100 million workers swept up in it. Notice just before the giraffe died his sister was born. August 31, 2021. Joe Burrow x giraffe sister born. September 8, 2021. Joe Burrow x giraffe death. Looks like comms announcing the future Kamala takeover. Notice the giraffe was born December 26, 2019. December 24, 2019. Grimes-sponsored Death Stranding, aborted baby goes on walk the game. December 25, 2019. Jesus is Born Kanye album, Armenian wife. December 26, 2019. Babies for sale, scheme shocks Armenia. December 26, 2019. Joe B. giraffe born. I wondered what the heck those Death Stranding comms were about. Here is the answer. It was such a strange choice, but now I can probably dig into the future and decode it properly. I mentioned the giraffe connection with Kanye. September 8, 2021. Louisiana giraffe Joe Burrow dies after sudden illness. September 8, 2021. Kylie Jenner second pregnancy announcement, top 20 most liked post on Instagram. September 8, 2021. Bezos tries reprogramming stem cells. Top Instagram post list, which ties it to social media pushing. I find it particularly interesting given the date of birth. February 2, 2022. Kylie welcomed baby number 2 wearing a 2,222 necklace on YouTube. 2/2/2/2. Kanye married into the Kardashians, which is why Kylie has connected comms. The kid's name? Originally, Wolf, but then changed to Stormy Webster. Name changed the day before the Festival of Sacrifice, though that's probably coincidence. Another 5.5 just now with Musk reacting with billion instead of million. Money printing endlessly, and tying it to the 5.5 implies it's setting up what's to come. Song playing, take it to the limit. Tigers. I went over how Joe Burrow played for LSU, mascot Tigers, and then moved to the Bengals, also Tigers. This is unlikely as coincidence, but unraveling the meaning here requires I decode the original teams. The Bengal Tigers came to be through Paul Brown, who himself was the namesake of the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, which themselves I already decoded in origin as the brown shirts, symbols of Nazi agents brought in through paperclip. MK Ultra sorts. The fact that the origin of the Browns created the Bengals gives us a likely symbol for the Tigers as more of the same. The origin of tiger stripes myth comes from Vietnam, which fits the Billy Cannon comms I covered before. Tying tiger to MK fits tiger as a symbol that I've covered plenty of times, but it's only the start of an answer. It begs a question of why split in the first place. So I looked up the origin. It wasn't a friendly split, instead the origin of the Browns was fired. May 16, 1967. Dick Tiger retained WBA, WBC and light heavyweight titles, win 56-17-3 Jose Torres Madison Square. May 23, 1967. Bengal Tigers established modeled after Browns. Not just the names, which is a giveaway, but if we consider symbolism. The established champion kicked out and creating Tiger, taking on his former Browns, who he took the titles from. Rematch. Note the winner being Tiger and loser being Hispanic Brown. Given the symbol tied to Tigers in relation to CIA/paperclip. April 25, 1966. JFK first quoted as wanting to destroy CIA after death. April 25, 1966. Dick Tiger lost championship titles. Could be coincidental, but why did that misquote become so famous? Origins are often important. I haven't decoded boxing, so it's hard to say on that last one. Symbols are molded for the message. For this reason each decode requires extensive effort, but established sports have frameworks that once understood can dramatically speed this up. Like for example the connection baseball has with retail companies. June 10, 1880. Bad pitching by Porman, first to allow 2 home runs by the same batter in the same inning. June 12, 1880. Richmond first perfect pitched game ever in baseball. June 17, 1880. Montgomery Ward's second perfect game beating Portman team. Mostly I decode the most famous events as those have more comms outfits talking about it, leaving larger and easier to track footprints. If a massive world-changing thing happened, a lot of players are going to chime in about it. In some cases it's even necessary. The comms can represent a major side agreeing to go in a direction. Without those comms it would be a question as to whether they were still agreeing to help in a direction. Especially the long-form ops, what if they decided to change their minds? That's what ops provide. A real-time input to adjust direction. That's the impression I've gotten after doing this for so many years. I hope that part is understood. Biden, for example, how many ways have I decoded what's going on there? Absurd, but it fits the scale of it. It's not that each and every one is coordinating things, some are, but many are just different comms outfits chiming in. If a major world-changing thing happens, maybe 1 or 2 billionaires groups coordinate a thing, and another may just want to reply to it. That's my take after decoding for so many years. The most important events involve different sides coordinating a message together to increase its volume. I've decoded a few things tied to boxing here and there, but outside of it symbolizing a fight, the common use for this remains elusive. Boxing, Jack Dempsey. The most likely common use is for a legal fight. I decoded Daredevil Comics as a vessel for legal comms. He is literally a lawyer, and his backstory is tied to his father's boxing career. That's far from conclusive, but I doubt they would combine legal plus boxing if there wasn't a connection. Looking at the top moments in boxing. September 26, 2020. Undisputed world champ Jermall Charlo wins WBA and IBF title and retained WBC. September 26, 2020. Joe Biden gaffe, got to Senate 180 years ago. September 27, 2020. Nagorno-Karabakh war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. October 27, 2018. Felix Cash wins boxing champion. October 27, 2018. Trump abandons umbrella outside AF1. October 29, 2018. Merkel announces won't run again. March 31, 1993. Felix Cash born. March 31, 1993. Death of Brandon Lee during the Crow. Spook legal protection gone. Those last two were inconclusive, nothing strong enough to feel confident. Usually the best way is to track down the origins of when a sport, especially when it reaches pinnacle pop culture. That's when comms footprints are easiest to identify and track. By some measures the first modern boxing spectacle. First $1 million gate, $1.7 million, first championship radio broadcast. July 2, 1921. Fight of the century, Jack Dempsey American beats French Carpentier for undisputed world championship. July 1, 1921, China Communist Party founded. So this was a battle of champions from different parts of the world. Challenger 1. October 12, 1920, battling lost championship to Carpentier. October 12, 1920, Man-O-War first race filmed entirety. Massive press hype around event, it was shown in theaters around country. When I said massive hype, I meant for the horse race. Given hype machine for Dempsey was legendary, it's now clear a control over the press is tied to all four of these events. Big Red Man-O-War is a horse I decoded here. Symbol of ending war. Specifically the comms tied to Man-O-War involve a female manager. June 4, 1919, women gain right to vote passed by Congress. June 6, 1919, female managed, Man-O-War greatest race horse debut. Manager, Dangerfield. Symbolism of women having control over man's war. Man-O-War, nicknamed Big Red, has last race tied to origins of Red China. Unlikely as coincidence. Even more interesting is the fact that Jack Dempsey, despite being American fighting a foreign fighter in America, he was seen as the villain. Why? War-avoiding draft dodger. Unlike Dempsey, Carpentier fought in the war. Having man-o'-war end as well as having the draft dodger win the world championship. It was time to the CCP forming. The comms looked to be pointing at whatever was happening in China with the CCP as a way to avoid war. Another curiosity about these events is the fact that the two fighters Dempsey knocked out before the fight of the century died 3 years later. January 1, 1924. Bill Misk death. June 15, 1924. Bill Brennan, battling bartender, death. 2 Bills die. Most reporting on Dempsey is not on those fights though, it's mostly about his initial title win. Tons of reporting about how Dempsey used loaded gloves to win the title from Williard, as well as how he broke teeth, ribs, jaw. Despite those reports, it's been disproven. It's been disproven in a number of ways, and for our purposes that's better as it confirms the exaggeration of injury to be comms. I'm not sure yet the precise message, but there is a clear. June 28, 1919, Treaty of Versailles, ending WWI and establishing the League of Nations, signed in France. +6. July 4, 1919, Dempsey wins first world title against Willard. Fight of century against French war fighter after. I couldn't come to a strong conclusion. A fight can represent a large number of conflicts, but I'm sure there is a standard to it. I just need to learn more boxing history. Charlotte's Web equals Animal Farm reaction. All comms are approachable with enough research. For example, today I decoded part of the 1952 Charlotte's Web by reconciling it with the 1945 Animal Farm. Both involve talking pigs as the main characters, but only one is given a direct explanation for the intent. Animal Farm was officially about the evils of Stalin and his allies in communism. Contrast with Charlotte's Web and notice it was released within a day of the final speech of the dying Joseph Stalin. Story ends with the dying spy, their beloved as a hero and children spreading. Such decodes go a long way to help understand the way parties viewed themselves and responded to criticism. Animal Farm acted as an insult and Charlotte's Web repackages the criticism into something heroic. What makes the spider heroic? She turns the pig into a celebrity. It reinforces the reality I already decoded elsewhere, that there were Soviet affiliates in the media. The extent of those assets in relation to the Operation Paperclip ones and the already established ones can be tough to untangle, but with this we can see multiple sides. Giving tree. Identifying common attributes can help. October 7, 1964. Giving Tree published famous kids book. October 7, 1964. Foreign Assistance Act enacted by LBJ. Story about a tree that gives and gives to someone who always asks for more. Gives until death. Reconcile with foreign aid timing. One is the act, the other a criticism of it. A way to discuss the logic of giving to that which will always ask for more. If you know the hottest topics for comms at the time, it speeds things up dramatically. Witcher 3, Understanding Context. E.g. I've been working on decoding the Witcher series, and while I'm not ready to share my findings on the full thing, there is one part one can go over now. Witcher 3 was released May 18, 2015, and as I go over in several posts. Around this timeframe the expectations were that Jeb Bush would be the Republican nominee and HRC would be the Dem ticket. As a result, there were comms this year preparing a narrative of HRC over Jeb. The narrative painted the Bush dynasty as bloodthirsty and a ticket to invasions of other countries. In 2015 Moore released a documentary promoting women as leaders as an alternative to invasions. The most important political choice in Witcher 3 involves choosing a ruler. You can either choose a bloodthirsty idiot intent on invasions or a smart woman who the game makes clear 100 times over is the correct choice. His story begins with a suicidal raid that kills his allies. It's ridiculous, but makes sense given the point was to ferment a perspective leading into elections. At every juncture he is getting beaten up and humiliated, and then you are asked which one you prefer. It seeds the idea into the public consciousness. Others like Michael Moore see the exact same idea and all of it echoes across the highly praising media. Take all of that plus most celebrities and news echoing similar sentiments, and you see how we are herded in directions. People will one day adapt to freedom beyond the choreographed conditioning. Burro Part 2, Biden and Trump. September 9, 2023. Army Military Academy football crushes Delaware 57-0. Biden represented Delaware for decades, and it's a consistent symbol for him. As for the Army Academy, how much do you know of Trump's past? Military Academy, something Q emphasized. So yeah, this may bode well for the future. The fact that the Military Academy lost and then suddenly came from behind crushing Delaware could represent where we were and where we are going. I noticed they picked September 9, 23, for it. 23 being a quick removal, 9 being a flipped 6, and Biden was associated with 666. This is all promising. I notice after the loss at Monroe on NFL Network, the winning game was on CBS. That's interesting in relation to the rest given Catherine Herridge comms. Q specifically highlighted her as proof of future change in mainstream media. The video linked to Military Academy post, 6/6. The positioning and visuals bear resemblance to the photo. I'm just getting warmed up. I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole diseased corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical. September 10, 2023. Joe Burrow shut down, loses 24-3 to Browns. Burrow equals donkey. Joe B. First game of the year and a massive loss. Joe Burrow says nobody is panicking after Bengals blowout Week 1 loss to Browns. As for the other Joe B. Not a great week for him either. September 7, 2023. Majority of likely Democratic voters say party should ditch Biden, poll shows. Majority of likely Democratic voters say party should ditch Biden, poll shows. 2/3 would prefer someone other than Biden, but respondents say he is best placed among declared candidates to beat Trump. Joe Burrow was the 2019 Heisman winner. A record-breaking one. Burrow received the highest percentage of first-place votes ever, with 90.7%. In addition, Burrow's win was the largest margin of victory ever. This was despite being a 200-1 odds. In order to understand comms today, I've been digging into past winners. Heisman. Like the famous Heisman curse, a major topic of conversation in the media from 20 March 2008, when all but one Heisman winner had a fall from grace. Especially Bush, who was forced to give his Heisman back. The biggest fall was a player named Bush. January 10, 2005, Bush Heisman Trophy awarded. January 10, 2005, CBS fires for anti-Bush National Guard story. It wasn't long after that when the press turned more against him. But does that mean Heisman as a comm is connected to press promotions? Clearly, I need to dig deeper and into the origins to solve this. What does Heisman even mean? Heisman was the director of the Chicago college football program. Whenever that's the case, the person has a symbol invoked. October 23, 1869, John Heisman born. October 23, 1869, first failed college football game. November 6, 1869, first college football game. College namesake born on the same day as the first planned college football game. 1869 was a bigger year for baseball than football. March 1869, Red Stockings' first All-Pro baseball team. October 1869, John Heisman born. November 1869, Red Stockings end season undefeated. It begs the question of what they were coordinating that year. February 26, 1869, African American voting passed. October 23, 1869, first college game planned Virginia, first time. October 23, 1869, Cleveland, John Heisman born. November 24, 25/1869 Cleveland, American Woman Suffrage Association founded. This looks likely for a number of reasons. Especially in the fact that it would be something to be associated with as a legacy. A proof of why this thing needs to exist. It also fits prior decodes tied to civil rights coordination. The tie to the origin of pro baseball is also something to keep in mind, as their legendary win streak seemed ran alongside it. But there's clearly more to it. Heisman was the namesake, but the first winner is also going to be an important cipher. The very first winner was a man named Jay Burwanger. He was also the first ever NFL draft pick. A man who famously and permanently scarred the eye of President Gerald Ford. Technically this was before he was president, but when was it reported? This is a comm connecting the Heisman Trophy to the top of the political world. He was the first draft pick of all time and was picked by the Eagles, but then traded to the Chicago Bears. He rejected the offer and instead took a job at the Chicago Rubber Company. Him being taken by Chicago is an interesting connection. Chicago played at Stagg Field. The same Stagg Field famous for being the origin of nuclear testing. The first artificial nuclear chain reaction. Stagg Party, like Playboy. 1942 FDR directs Army build a nuke. 1942 Chicago Stagg Field first self-sustained nuclear chain reaction by Army. 1942-1953, Hefner lives in Chicago, joins Army newspaper, calls nude magazine Stagg Party. The Hope Diamond Curse, Fonzie's motorcycle jumps and major updates. There are few symbols as prominent as diamonds in pop culture. The more popular the symbol, the deeper that rabbit hole, so let's get into the secret side of diamonds. May 18, 1935, Bell proposes NFL draft, Bell equals phone surveillance. May 14, 1935, opening of Griffith Observatory tied to James Dean, Dean equals college head. Observing what? February 8, 1936, first NFL draft hotel Ritz. February 5, 1936, Japan Pro Baseball starts, $1 billion industry begins. The point with hotel is likely blackmail. Blackmail ops. I found comms going back to at least the mid-18th century, the full extent remains unknown. November 29, 1890, Army's football program begins with loss to Navy. November 29, 1890, Japan Constitution. It's confusing at times trying to keep track of which side is which. Especially with so many countries in play. I'm trying to figure it out myself as I go. The more I chart it out, the better I'll get at mitigating the superfluous. February 5, 1936, Japan Pro Baseball. February 6, 1936, Olympics begin. February 7, 1936, Protection of migratory birds. February 8, 1936, first NFL draft begins. Migratory birds symbolizing moving agents across borders. First NFL draft player, Jay, a migratory bird. Notice he doesn't play for the NFL. The first iteration of this protection makes it more clear. April 28, 1914, World War I begins. August 16, 1916, US/UK protection of migratory birds. April 4, 1917, US Senate votes to declare war. Protecting agents being sent to help with war efforts before it was legal to do so. This helps explain why birds were used in this parody. February 4, 1945, Big Three of the world meet at Yalta. February 3, 1945, Three Caballeros, Disney's 7th animated feature film released. I decoded it conclusively as sending agents across borders. Those comms were also tied to blackmail, and that helps explain this connection. February 7, 1936, Protection of migratory birds signed in Mexico City. February 7, 1936, Felix the Cat revival, goose that laid the golden egg. Felix equals original KGB head. Green Hornet/Bruce Lee. That was also when the Green Hornet began. January 31, 1936, Green Hornet debut. February 7, 1936. Protection of migratory birds. Meaningful because the Green Hornet is where Bruce Lee began his career, which likely gives us that symbol. Bruce plus Lee equals America plus China symbolism. Also explains the need for green as its opposite of red China. Bruce. May 4, 1935. Birth of famous dog, my own Brucey, son of Red Brucey, the first modern American Cocker Spaniel. January 31, 1936. Green Hornet debut. Ownership of Bruce plus Cocker Spaniel blackmail control. September 8, 1966. Star Trek debut. September 9, 1966. Green Hornet Bruce Lee. March 17, 1966. Migratory bird stamp issued. Star Trek famously international and first interracial kiss on TV. Having Bruce Lee begin same time is no accident. He introduced and popularized Chinese films in America. Specifically, the treaty is designed to protect against capture or killing, which would be the crucially important rule if sending agents to another country. Bird migration. A symbol of agreement to let these alien, migratory birds roost in a new country unbothered. November 19, 1976. Soviet Union Conservation of Migratory Birds and Their Environment signed Moscow. November 19, 1976. Jack Dorsey was born. November 19, 1976. UFO sighting Canary Island. This may give us the symbol for what Twitter was meant to be. As for UFO connection has high meaning today. September 13, 2023. UFO expert displays non-human alien corpses in Mexico's Congress. September 13, 2023. Wife of Mexican drug lord known as El Chapo released from a U.S. prison. Alien being the word to define foreign infiltration. The alien story talks about 1,800-year-old mysterious eggs inside an alien shown by X-rays. November 30, 2021. Quest to drill Antarctica's oldest ice. November 30, 2021. El Chapo's wife sentenced on federal drug trafficking charges. She was reported to be cooperating against cartel members. That alien report to Mexican Congress critically asserts would turn Mexico into the first country in the world to acknowledge the presence of aliens on the planet, local media reported. Symbolism of making public aliens. Potential start of a D-class. September 13, 2023. Los Angeles, El Chapo's wife Emma Ispuro released from jail September 14, 2023. Los Angeles, Adrian Paul Ispuro attempted assassination RFK Jr. goes to jail. One LA Ispuro gets out of jail, another goes to jail. Turn in associates equals reduced sentence. Deal calms. This may be unrelated, but I had been wondering why they picked Mexican Star for One Piece. It's been promoted considerably the last few weeks as it tops Netflix. I'm a fan of the original myself, and this is the first anime adaptation that gave me the impression they tried. Birdwatching Spycraft. Another big find from a reader. Turns out the famous spy name, James Bond, originated with a birdwatcher. This strongly reinforces my decodes tying those migratory bird treaties to spycraft. It's a logical profession to use for this symbolism, as having migratory birds as code for people moving between borders. I can't think of any other animal that would be able to as easily communicate that. Plus it's something that would bore casual listeners. This reader further postulated that this also explains the Pokémon Pokédex symbolism. I agree with this take. The plots of the games all revolve around cataloging as many Pokémon as possible. This is the same relationship birders have as they document thousands. I looked up famous ones, like Florence, the origin of birding popularity. December 16, 1899. Florence, Italy, Bailey marriage to Orlando. December 16, 1899. Top Italy soccer team founded. I already decoded soccer as tied to info movement, and this reinforces it. Tigers and Kings. September 14, 2023. Joe Exotic wants Bengals star Joe Burrow to help him get out of federal prison. The original Tiger King would like some dollar help from the NFL's Tiger King. This gives me the clue I needed on why Joe Biden comms were intertwined with tigers. I partly decoded Tiger King years ago due to requests. It was the hottest media property in the world during the early pandemic. My original take decoded Tiger and tied the jailing to flips. Still true, but I missed the important part. That status of being the media smash during COVID was a massive clue. This whole phenomenon was likely intended to explain the why of COVID. Note the reaction of Joe, that anyone that comes after him is going to face a small and hostages. March 19, 2020, second dog Hong Kong COVID. March 19, 2020, fish tank additive chloroquine cure. March 20, 2020, Tiger King Netflix trial zookeeper murder for hire plot. March 20, 2020, Animal Crossing New Horizons. March 20, 2020, Tom Brady Tampa Bay. March 21, 2020, Netflix BNA brand new animal. Lots of animal comms that week. At least 3 major comms tied to animal communities. The Animal Crossing one in particular is notable as it became the 13th best-selling game in history. Joe Biden campaigned through it. Joe Exotic equals 2020 Tiger King, Joe Burrow equals 2020 Tiger King, and Joe Biden equals 2020 presidential campaign. Burrow adopted the moniker from Joe Exotic in 2020. He had left one Tiger team and joined another just as Joe Exotic had become a phenomenon. Clearly connected comms. The premise of the show was Tiger King being arrested for murder for hire. The point during COVID was to explain the lockdowns. That this is why it's necessary because crazy people like this dot the world and can release tigers. As these dangerous people were rounded up, comms were sent to communicate about it. Acting as entertainment to the uninitiated, a threat of jail to those targeted, a deal offered to flips as well as a historical marker. There are many reasons for comms like these. So Joe Exotic was Tiger King, and then Joe Burrow, Burro equals Donkey, takes over as the new Tiger King in 2020. Note the final episode of Joe Exotic is dethroned. The symbol of the old king being dethroned by arrest, and then the new king takes over. Now we have Exotic asking for lawyer money from Burrow after he gets the $5.5 million biggest NFL yearly contract in history. This could represent what is being funded. The flips that rat getting legal help. Something I've decoded in many places. The 2020 comms are fairly clear. Tiger being caged, heck even cast Nick Cage as Tiger King. So yeah, those comms are clear, but there's a longer plan to read, and I'm always torn about whether to just say what is clear or to take a guess or two. This presidential campaign, for example, turning into a Dem and running against Biden. I have a hypothesis, but I'm going to try and be more reserved about giving theories. People learning don't need guesses. I'd like to try and be a stronger foundation for the new. I went over El Chapo comms before. El Chapo and Snatch. But I made no great conclusion about what it meant. A reader has found a fascinating comms connection that had the unusual distinction of being reported. Albeit in a tiny corner of the internet. Here is the article. September 16, 2023. What a coincidence, potential RFK Jr. assassin had same last name as El Chapo's wife, who was released from federal prison the day before. If you look closer at this coincidence, you'll find more connections. September 13, 2023. Los Angeles, El Chapo's wife Emma Ispuro released from jail. September 14, 2023. Los Angeles, Adrian Paul Ispuro attempted assassination, RFK Jr. goes to jail. One LA Ispuro gets out of jail, another goes to jail. Deal comms. Turn in associates equals reduced sentence. This led me to dig more into Chapo. He is particularly infamous for breaking out of prison multiple times. His escapes are so elaborate they put movie Prison Breaks to shame. It's clearly staged and not just this guy. The Chapo escapes are all about spending millions of dollars in elaborate escapes. In between prison breaks he is constantly evading law enforcement in equally insane ways. It's rare to see something this cinematic presented as real. Another staged prison break story is this guy in Japan. A guy with superpowers for no discernible reason. He can climb any wall, contort his body into any shape to escape any hole. He can escape handcuffs by merely spreading his arms. Which is to say he's the only person I've ever seen described as having super strength. He can just hulk out and break handcuff chains like they were faulty exercise equipment. No reason is given for any of these feats, it's just something he can do. It's clearly calms. His stories of superhuman escapes are tied to prison abuse suffered, and that is the point. Eventually he kills, but after he is treated like a human being he does his time like a model prisoner. Thus stories of super escapes are a cautionary tale about cruelty to prisoners. Specifically his story climaxes after World War II when he voluntarily gives himself up after being shown kindness by a police officer. It all happens after the US takes over Japan, therefore these comms were sent to explain why the US would make prisons less like torture. So that one was easy enough to decode, but what the heck was going on with El Chapo? Luckily, unlike this mythical figure in Japan, El Chapo has dates set in stone for his feats which always make it easier. His escapes are the most famous parts. When did he escape then? January 19, 2001. El Chapo first prison escape, smuggled out of prison as dirty laundry. January 19, 2001. Snatch diamond heist film smuggling diamonds. I doubt this is coincidence, and it unlocks quite a bit. Also, there are two versions of his escape story to consider. The non-official story is the investigative journalist version with El Chapo dressed up as a police officer and escorted out. The story about it likens him to a 5 feet 5 inches Super Mario, as in Jump. 5:5 Clear communication, but what was the intent of the theatrics? Film begins with robbers in disguise talking about virgins in a movie called Snatch. They smuggle out a diamond and the movie is one criminal faction after another trying to take it. This parallels El Chapo disguised and smuggled, but the true point requires analysis. The whole film is focused on numerous criminal outfits at war with one another. No criminal outfit is given a starring role and none are portrayed as moral, some are merely corrupt rather than outright viciously evil. Reconcile that with El Chapo the point becomes clear. Watch the intro, notice how it cuts between all the factions. This is about tracking criminals. That's the point of El Chapo as a figurehead, a device to chart out criminal networks. However, you may notice with the title being a dirty word and it opening with talk of lies about a virgin. Odds are there's some kind of extra level to it. The main characters is Avi, which was at the time of filming the most popular video format. The most evil character is Brick Top, notice his giant glasses so big they magnify his face. Microscope examination. He forces people to take on puppet strings and do horrible things. If they refuse he literally feeds them to pigs to hide all evidence. The factions include practically every nationality, which reinforces the networking point. There's also an ex-KGB agent that is famous for returning after being killed. As in a spook. Finding a spook. So the basic point is clear about charting criminality at least. El Chapo either became or always was a movie to coordinate syndicates tracking. Which is why it's curious that El Chapo was delivered to the US the day before Trump took office. If he was being used to coordinate syndicates before, there's no reason to think he's not doing it now. Ran with Felix, Kingpin until 1988, starting his network and made billions. Felix is a name often tied to government blackmail. It may be particularly meaningful when we consider all the ways he is said to have bribed politicians in Mexico. $100 million bribes. Also, El Chapo was born on April 4. May point to news tied to him as critical to everything going on right now. I went over the connections of El Chapo's wife and the hitman with the same name in disguise. I noticed he is 44, could be coincidence, but it's definitely a number to look out for this year. Telegram chat. Join the Decoding Telegram group. This has been Joe Biden, Donkey, equals Joe Burrow, Donkey and Tiger King, equals Joe Exotic, Tiger King.